Hey, what's up, Crypto Army? I'm Travis, your crypto newbie, bringing you my experiences. You have to learn things the hard way. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, and none of my content should be viewed as financial advice. So, quick update on Reflex Finance. I mentioned last night in the AMA for Reflex that I was going to do an update video as soon as I had information about the unstaking process and when it was going to begin, and they launched it early. It was scheduled to start tomorrow sometime, but they've already announced on Twitter that you can go and unstake your tokens without penalty right now. Now, everybody needs to do this no later than 26 March. So between now and 26 March, make sure you get into the Reflex Finance website and unstake your tokens. Now, this is in order to do the V2 conversion later this month. Now, to unstake your tokens, go to Reflex Finance, and again, always make sure that you go to the correct website. A lot of times what scammers are going to do out there is they will create a website that looks exactly the same, except for the address will be a little bit off. Maybe they'll spell Reflex incorrectly, or maybe they'll spell finance incorrectly, or maybe instead of .net, it'll be .com or .io or some other web address, but it'll look the exact same and will function very similar to how their website does. Make sure you're at the right address and go to Utilities and Staking tab. Now, as you can see here, nearly a third of all holders are staked. That's a lot of people. Now, you're going to start to see this number decrease over the course of the next week. But 400 trillion tokens have been staked. That's phenomenal. That really is phenomenal. Now, what you're going to do is connect your wallet, scroll down. That way you can see what your current rewards are, and you'll see you've got the button here for claim. Before you hit this button, go ahead and take a screen capture of this. That way if anything goes wrong, you've got a record of this is what you had before you hit the button. That's always a good approach when you're doing these things. That way if anything goes wrong, you can work with the team and say, here's what it showed me that I was going to get. And if you don't get that, well, then you can talk with the team about getting the rest of your tokens. But always take a screen capture before you do anything. Now, after you've claimed your tokens, you don't want to stake anymore. The whole reason why they're doing this early, I know that a lot of us are locked in for the 6 months at 35% or whatever we ended up locking in. The reason why we're doing this process is because we're getting ready to do a contract migration. So we're going to move from version 1. Technically, it's like version 2 already since they did a pre-launch. But anyway, we're going to do from the current contract to the version 2 of what we're currently working on. So that is going to happen by the end of the month. I'm pretty sure it'll be by the end of this month. But as you can see, since it was supposed to happen tomorrow and now it's today, we're ahead of schedule, and that's pretty typical for Reflex Finance. I would assume by the end of the month, we're going to be talking version 2 contract updates. Now, staking is not going to be up and running until after the migration of the contract. So after we've done the process of moving from version 1 to version 2, again, probably through something on their website. Not a lot of details about what that's going to look like. My guess is you'll connect your wallet and there'll be a button that says migrate to version 2. And it'll be automatic, hopefully. Very little impact for you. You'll probably have to pay a small gas fee for that process. And you have to pay a little bit of a gas fee to unstake as well. So expect that. And then you'll be on the version 2 of the contract. Now, once we're on version 2 of the contract and the Launchpad launches, we'll have staking and yield farming. Now, yield farming is a little bit different than staking, as I mentioned in previous videos, and I mentioned during the AMA yesterday. I'll do a separate video on yield farming and some of the concerns you have to be aware of. And Ray from the team is going to do a video as well, which would probably focus a lot on the specifics of how their yield farm is going to work and some of the ins and outs of using their yield farm. So I'll probably do my update after his, just to see what he doesn't talk about. That way I can make sure I can hit those areas on my video. But every yield farm is a little bit different. So I don't want to do it beforehand, because if there's some differences, I can talk about what those differences are if he explains it in a way that maybe I don't think you're going to understand. Everybody interprets things a little bit different. So I'll give you my experiences based off how they describe yield farming for Reflex Finance. Now, there were a couple people that were a little frustrated that they're having to unstake a little bit early. And I definitely understand where those people are coming from. They staked for 6 months and they expected a 35% APR over the course of that 6-month period. So they felt a little frustrated that Reflex didn't hold up their end of the bargain. But here's a different way to look at it. And I understand where that perspective comes from. But you wouldn't have had the Reflex available for farming under that approach. Or you would have had to buy more Reflex, or maybe you had more, but the main thing is that now you've got ability to farm also. So for everybody that was complaining about, hey, I locked it in for 35% APR over the course of 6 months and you're breaking your contract with me essentially early. And again, there's more reasons for why this is happening. Part of the reason why we're doing this contract upgrade to version 2 is to make it so that it works with SafeMoon Swap. And if you haven't figured it out, we're going to be partnering with SafeMoon Swap in a little different way, I think, than most tokens out there. So I think that this is going to be beneficial to the token and the community in the long run to get this contract migration out of the way. Not to mention, as Ray described it, this is the gold standard of contracts. It's going to fix a lot of issues that, again, are going to benefit you as a holder of Reflex Finance moving forward. So that's kind of the why we're doing this migration, and why they have to do the token staking and why they have to unstake early is to facilitate all of that. But here's the benefit or the lining on this. And I said the same thing last night. It's a little premature to complain right now. Yes, you're going to miss out on staking for a week or two while we do this process of doing the migration and the launching of staking and farming in the version 2. Right, so there's going to be a couple weeks where you're not earning any staking benefits. So I get that. They haven't said that 35% won't be available when it goes live for staking. They haven't said what the APYs are going to be for yield farming. So there's a lot of unknowns. They did say that we're going to have a 1-year staking period. So potentially you can get 35% or higher for a 1-year staking period. Now, again, I don't know what the APRs are going to be or what the APYs are going to be, but just because we're losing a couple weeks doesn't mean you're not going to be able to get that benefit that you were looking for initially when you staked your tokens. Wait until the team announces what those are going to be and then go from there. But it is necessary and beneficial to the community that they're doing this. I'm right there with you. I'm staked for 35% for 6 months. I would have really liked to get 35% for 6 months, but I'm not 100% sure that I'm not going to get that. And I'm also not sure that I'm not going to benefit more or so from the farming. I'm not ready to say that I'm upset with it until I see what they actually announce. And that will be my recommendation to you if you're upset that you're not being staked for the entire 6 months, is wait for everything to come through, and then you can always complain afterwards. But this is kind of unavoidable. They had to do this because SafeMoon Swap is doing their cross-chain upgrade. We kind of need to do the same process, especially because of the partnership. It's an unfortunate aspect, but that's kind of the reality of what they got to do. And the team's always going to do what's best for their project, but it needed to be done. Now, what are some possible APRs, right? Now, again, these aren't necessarily what it's going to be. This is pad swap, and I used this as the example yesterday. 343% APY for this pair. 318% for this one. Now, I have no idea what the APY is going to be for Reflex and Binance Smart Chain. If it's anywhere near this, then I'm going to jump on that, probably. Again, I'm going to do a separate video on farming and some of the issues you got to worry about, but that APY is phenomenal. But there's some things you got to be aware of. Now, 35%, 343%. I don't know about you, but I really like 343%. And I wouldn't have liked having to buy more Reflex in order to do the pair, in order to do the farming. So think about it like that. This might be beneficial to you in the long run that you had to unstake early. All right, let's do a quick recap of what you need to do and when you need to do it. Before 26 March, you need to come here, connect your wallet, take a screen capture of how many tokens you've got. And if you got more than one wallet, don't forget about the other wallets. And then you want to claim. If you have any issues, work with the team to resolve the issues. Just make sure that everything flows smoothly. If you don't need the screen capture, then you can delete it afterwards. Then you're done. Then you just wait for them to announce the version 2 migration for the contract. And again, you'll come here, connect to the website in some way, and there'll be more directions provided on exactly what that's going to look like. Then you wait again for the launch pad, the farming, and the staking to relaunch under version 2. Then you got to figure out what the best option is between staking and yield farming. Now, one thing to consider that I'll throw out there right now for yield farming, it's pairs. And the pair is most likely going to be Reflex with Binance Smart Chain. So you need to have Binance Smart Chain and you need to have Reflex in order to do those two things. So if you haven't been keeping Binance Smart Chain because you've been buying Reflex or some of the other tokens that are out there, just might want to consider holding on to some Binance Smart Chain or getting it while it's still kind of cheap, although the price is going up on it. That way you've got it if you want to take advantage of those high APYs for farming. Now that's pretty much it for today. One final thought on yield farming. Now I've participated in yield farms and I showed you some pretty high rates. Those are high rates for token pairs that have been around for a while. I don't know how long they've been on PadSwap, but they've been there for a while. I've also participated in projects that launched their swaps and launched their yield farming. Some of the APYs were anywhere from 800% to higher than 1,000%. Now, they don't stay that high for that long. As soon as people start to take advantage of it and start putting stuff into the pairs and start actually farming, the APY tends to go down in conjunction with how many people are taking advantage of it. So I can't say if it's quick or if it's slow. It really depends on how many people take advantage of it. But 800% for any length of time is a lot of tokens. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's going to blow 35% out of the water. Now, again, I don't know what Reflex Finance is going to launch with for the APYs. Maybe it's not anywhere near that. Maybe it's 100%. Maybe it's 50%. I don't know. That's why I said wait to complain until after they announce what those rates are going to be. And maybe 35% is still an option. But I think it's a little premature to really throw up your arms and complain about it because we just don't know enough about it. That's my recommendation. I think some people were getting a lot of heartburn over something that might be beneficial to them in the long run. Now, let me know in the comments. Do you have any issues with how this is being handled as far as unstaking and switching over to the version 2 of the contract? Or are you excited about what's coming in the future based off of these changes and some of the things like the partnership with SafeMoon and the Launchpad? I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. Until next time, stay strong with those diamond hands.